There is trouble brewing in the Big Apple. Both the New York Jets and the New York Giants are not looking good right now. The Giants have lost 5 out of their last 6, and the Jets have lost 3 out of their last 4. The New York Jets fell to 7-6 after losing to the Buffalo Bills 20-12 this past Sunday. With that loss, the Chargers leapfrogged over them for the last spot in the AFC with their win over the Miami Dolphins. Now the Jets have to be able to beat out the Chargers and the Patriots for that last playoff spot in the AFC. Meanwhile, the Giants were annihilated and obliterated by the Philadelphia Eagles, falling to 7-5-1. However, unlike the New York Jets, they still hold the 7th seed in the NFC. But the Seahawks and the Lions are right on their trail. Both of these two teams right now are heading in the wrong direction for pretty much the same reasons. First, being injuries. The New York Giants are absolutely decimated at wide receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson, who was having a really promising rookie season, he's on IR. Sterling Shepard, he's on IR as well. They also have a couple of other key guys who have missed time this season. The New York Jets, their offensive line, something that many New York Jets were excited about going into this season. Elijah Vera Tucker, Mekhi Becton, they're hurt. They're on IR. Breece Hall, who is having a fantastic rookie campaign this year, he's on IR. The Jets and the Giants, when it comes to injuries, the injury gods have been really ruthless with these two franchises. Then you look at the fact that offensively, they kind of have the same identity. They don't really have phenomenal quarterback play. Daniel Jones has been pretty solid this year. He definitely is better than Mike White and any other quarterback that the New York Jets have started this year. However, the run game is pretty much the heart and soul of these two offenses. If the run game isn't there, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to have much success offensively. So therefore, you put a lot of pressure on both of these defenses, which the New York Giants defense, I felt had been really good, one of the best in the league at one point prior to the last couple of weeks. And I think that's because their offense not being able to sustain drives is putting their defense on the field more. Their defense is now starting to get a little bit more tired. Not to mention they have injuries on that side of the ball as well. You look at the Jets, we know how great their defense has been all year long, but we keep asking ourselves the same question every single week. Can the Jets carry this team? Can the Jets defense carry them to a win? At some point, you got to be able to play complementary football. Both of these two teams right now aren't doing a great job of playing complementary football. The New York Jets offense, yeah, you look at the stats, yeah, they can get going at times, but if you watch these games with no run game, there is no New York Jets offense. With no Saquon Barkley, what are the New York Giants offensively? Their best receiver is Darius Slayton right now, and I love me some Darius Slayton. I have him on my fantasy teams, all of them. I love me some Darius Slayton, but anytime Darius Slayton is your number one wide receiver, you're having some severe issues at that position. Not to mention, the New York Giants, their offensive line hasn't been all that great neither. Yeah, they're getting pretty good play from their offensive tackles and Evan Neal and left tackle Andrew Thomas, but their interior guard play that they have gotten this year hasn't been all that good. So the New York Giants, what makes them different from the New York Jets is that the Jets are a better football team than the Giants from a talent standpoint. The Jets have a way more talented roster. The only thing that's really holding back the Jets is quarterback. What's holding back the Giants and what's kind of hindering them at this point of the season is the fact that they were able to take advantage of a very favorable schedule at the start of the season. And now with things starting to get a little bit difficult, the second half of the season, coaching isn't able to get them all these wins. You see, earlier during the first half of the year, when the Giants were 6-1, we were all talking about how great of a job Brian Daboll has done with this team. And with them being 6-1, it definitely was a huge accomplishment because nobody expected the Giants to be 6-1 at that point. However, you had to realize that this was a team that was 6-1 based off Brian Daboll scheming things up and coaching his tail up. And on top of that, they also had a couple of games that they had some things go their way, such as that Ravens game, that Lamar Jackson interception. They had a couple of things that went their way, so they were able to win some one-possession games that maybe if they would play some of these teams again, such as the Ravens, they might not beat them a second go around. Not to mention, the Giants really weren't all that talented to begin with coming into this season. So therefore, when you have a team that's not all that talented and you just have a few injuries, that's enough to hurt you. And then you have the barrage of injuries to your star players or some of your key players on offense. Yeah, that's dramatically going to hurt you. And it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. You can scheme and call all the great plays all you want to, but the better teams you face with better coaching staffs, with more talent, you're not going to be able to out-scheme and out-coach your way to wins like we saw in their recent blowout loss against the Philadelphia Eagles. When you're playing teams that are just as well coached as you and more talented, you're not going to be able to win. And you saw that when the Philadelphia Eagles sent the New York Giants to the gulag. The New York Giants right now are falling apart. Not because I think they're frauds. I just think that this is a team that wasn't all that talented to begin with, and they're suffering some injuries. They're now starting to fall a little bit back to earth. But I still think that the Giants have a good chance of being able to make it into the playoffs because they do have to play Washington, Minnesota, the Colts, and the Eagles. I do believe that the Vikings, the Washington, and Colts games are all winnable games for them. That Philadelphia Eagles game, you should be able to win that one because at that point, they should already have the number 1 overall seed locked up and secured. So hopefully they can go ahead, rest their starters. And that's a game that you can go ahead and have the benefit of playing the Philadelphia Eagles second and third stringers. So that should be an easy win for you if that situation plays out that way. For the New York Jets, I think their path to the playoffs is so much tougher because now you don't really control your own destiny. Now the Chargers have a hold of the 7th seed. And the Chargers are a team that, like you, have also suffered a lot of injuries to some of their core players this season. But the difference is they're starting to get healthy. So when the Chargers get fully healthy, you have to wonder, are they even going to lose another game? The Chargers might just go ahead and win out. And you may not even have an opportunity to try to get that 7th seed unless the Dolphins lose a couple of games and they fall from the 6. The Chargers go up to 6 and they come down to 7. And then you're fighting with the Dolphins to try to get that last spot, which that Week 18 matchup could probably end up being winner go home. Winner gets that 7th seed. Maybe. You look at the Jets, the only thing that's really hurting them is quarterback. And it sucks because I think that the Jets this year have a roster that's good enough to win the Super Bowl. It's just the quarterback play hasn't been good. Mike White is the best quarterback you have right now, and he's not bad. He looks pretty solid. But you have to wonder, is he going to be good enough to get you wins over teams such as the Seattle Seahawks and the Miami Dolphins? Because the only win that we've seen Mike White lead the Jets to was over the Chicago Bears when they didn't have Justin Fields. So I wonder just how good is Mike White against top tier competition? And for the New York Jets, with no run game, you have to put all your confidence and all your faith on Mike White, which is something that I don't really think, if you're Robert Saleh, you want to do. And the Zach Wilson thing hurt them so much because now you have this great roster that's held back because you don't have a quarterback. And I said this a couple of weeks ago. I didn't say it on this channel, but I said it on my TikTok. If you guys aren't following my TikTok, go ahead and do so at JT_Sports on TikTok. I said that Zach Wilson is going to keep the Jets from making the playoffs. And I was going back and forth with one of my homeboys who also happens to be a New York Jets fan as well. He was like, man, we don't need Zach Wilson to have these great games. We don't need great quarterback play. We just need somebody to not turn the football over and just rely on defense. And that's all cool and everything. But what's going to happen when you have to put up 20 points? And you're facing a team that also has a really good defense, such as the Buffalo Bills. You saw what happened to the New York Jets yesterday. Their offense struggled. Yeah, their defense is going to be able to keep them in games, but your defense isn't going to be able to keep you in games to the point of you just can't do anything. 12 points isn't going to cut it for the New York Jets. Yeah, you may be able to beat the Jaguars, but you might not be able to beat Detroit. If you can't put up more points, you definitely ain't going to be able to beat Miami and Seattle. If you can't put up more points on offense, it doesn't matter how good of a defense you have if you struggle to score in the red zone. That's something that the Jets struggle to do. So you know what happens? They get inside the red zone and they walk away with field goals instead of touchdowns. Something that you can't have when you're a team that wins games based off their defense, because then you're settling for field goals. Other teams going down there and they're getting touchdowns late. You have to be able to capitalize off your opportunities when you get in the red zone. The Jets' offensive line, having the injuries to Elijah Vera Tucker and Mekhi Becton, definitely has hampered this offense. But what has hampered this offense more this year has been the quarterback play. Both the Jets and the Giants are collapsing because they have suffered injuries to key players, both sides of the football. Secondly, they kind of were able to take advantage of not great schedules, and they also had some wins that the ball was able to bounce in their favor. I think if I had to pick between one of these two teams who I had more confidence in to make it into the playoffs, I probably would go with the Giants, believe it or not. They have a way more easier schedule to close out this season compared to the Jets. They got to play Washington on the road in Minnesota, then the Colts at home in Philadelphia. Probably that Philadelphia game, you get to play them when they put their backups in. Meanwhile, for the Jets, yeah, you play the Lions, who are one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Yeah, good luck with that. You got to play the Jaguars, who just upset Tennessee. Then you got to go on the road against the Seahawks and the Dolphins. There's a strong possibility that the Jets go 0-4 or maybe 1-3. And there's a strong possibility that we could see the Jets maybe still 2 games from this stretch, because they are playing the Colts, who aren't good. You're playing Minnesota, which, yeah, they do have one of the best records in the NFL, but they're pretty inconsistent. They just find ways to win, so that game could go either way. You could keep that one close. Then you got to play Washington, which you tied with not too long ago. Hopefully you could end up winning that one the next go around. For the Giants, you just got to be able to hold off the Detroit Lions. And you got to be able to hold off Seattle. So really all you have to do is win. And even then, even if you do slip up, you know, the Detroit Lions still are a couple of games back. So you do have a little bit of room for error. Seattle does play the 49ers this Thursday. So if they lose that game and you lose, you still hold on to that last spot, I believe. So for the Giants, I just think that they have a easier path to holding on to that 7 seed compared to the New York Jets retaking that 7 seed away from the Chargers or whoever gets it, because their schedule, their last 4 games Really tough. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys. Make sure that you guys check out the JT Sports Podcast, available on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. Leave us a review. Share the podcast with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you guys with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast shortly.